Hey guys, so this next video right here is going to be about a 2002 Chevy Trailblazer, and it's going to be diagnosing and fixing a misfire. So this is another one of my mailman's cars. I guess today he had quite the issue. Two of his cars were acting up. One of them had a battery that wasn't charging, and the other one was misfiring, which is this car behind me right here, this Trailblazer. So we're going to diagnose it. I'm going to throw my code reader on it. I'm going to see if there's any codes. I think there's going to be a misfire code, and we're going to proceed from there with the diagnosis. I have been working on redoing the garage at my house. We're setting it up with an epoxy floor. Should be really nice. We're trying to prep the floor right now, just to get it ready for the epoxy coating, because it's a super intense process where you mix the two parts together, and it has a hardening time of 45 minutes. So you have to paint the whole garage in 45 minutes. So that should be difficult, but we'll get it done. But yeah, I'm gonna move into diagnosing this 2002 Trailblazer right here. So here's my OBD2 code reader. What this actually is a Bluetooth connection. It goes to my phone, and on my phone I have an app that allows me to read codes and check other sorts of things as far as the ECU goes on the car. So what I'm going to do is plug into what you see down here, this OBD2 port right there with that blue bit on it. So my Bluetooth connection is going to plug into there, and then I will connect to my phone with that, and then I'll be able to read the codes on the car. So I'm going to do that, and I'll check back with you guys. So I've got my Torque app open on my phone here. I need to connect the Bluetooth adapter to my phone, and I have to turn on the car to do that. So okay, now the key's on. Should be connected here. We'll click fault codes, and we're going to click here to scan. So this is going to check for codes, and it looks like we do have a code. Cylinder 5 misfire detected. So it's still scanning. I don't think it's going to find any more codes, but yeah, so we do know that we have a misfire in cylinder number 5. So we know where it is that we have to look first. So what I'm going to proceed to do is take the engine cover off, and we're going to check the coil, because we did just get some heavy rain, and I think I have an idea of what the problem might be. A common issue with these Trailblazers here is, see that area right there that's just metal that goes all the way around the cowl? That's supposed to have a seal there, and that seal's missing on this car, which happens to a lot of these older cars. I mean, it is now about 16 years old or more, 16 or 17 years old. So those seals go missing, and then when you get heavy rain, it comes down the cowl and it leaks down the back of the engine down here. And so down underneath this little intake section here, this whole intake box, there is your coils for your spark plugs, and those are what energize the spark plugs to give you spark. So what can happen is water can travel in and get all inside the coil. And when water gets inside the coil, obviously water and electricity, you're going to have an issue. So the coil can burn itself out and short out on the water, and then you will have a misfire because you're not getting spark. So we're going to proceed to take off this little cover here. Should just be this hose clamp along with this hose clamp, and I think there's a couple of 10mm bolts in here somewhere, but yep, here's one of them, and I'm assuming there's another one on the other side, but you probably can't see it. So I'm gonna take all that stuff off, and then we'll get the intake box off, and we'll take a look at those coils. Alright, so I've gone ahead and loosened this hose clamp and this other hose clamp, both 8mm, and there's 110 right here, and there's 110 right behind here. You can't see it, but it's right behind this hose here. So yeah, now all we have to worry about is this little vacuum line here. We're going to take that off, and then this whole box should just pop up, and we're going to pull this hose off and pull it off of the other side here. And this whole box comes off. Make sure when you put it back on, this piece right here has to go back over where it came. It's this little connection right here on top of your valve cover. So, put that aside, and right in here we have all of our coils. So, what we're going to do with our coils here is we know from our check engine light and the code that we scanned for that we have a cylinder 5 misfire. So, we're going to locate cylinder 5 on this motor. It's different on every engine, but on this motor, it's going to be this one right here. So what we're going to do is take this clip off. I'll see if I can get you some good light here. But we'll take this clip off right here, and that's like a little safety clip. And then we're going to unplug it. We're going to unbolt the coil, and we're going to swap it with a different coil. And then what we're going to do is clear the code inside the car and start the car, let it misfire, and we're going to see if that misfire cylinder jumped from 5 to 4 or wherever. It should jump to where we changed it to, but if it doesn't, then we know we have a different problem in that cylinder. But this is just a good way to rule that out, and I think that it's probably going to be one of these coils. So I'm going to work on getting that clip off, and I'll show you guys how to swap these coils. So if you'll watch right here, I'm just going to unplug these two connections right here. And now that those connections are off, I already took these little locking tabs out. So after that, you can just unplug those. And now we're going to pull our coil out. I just got a 10mm socket here. And we're going to take out these two coils. And put this guy out. I'm just going to take a look here, see if I see anything. And take this guy out as well. A little bit tighter. Okay, and we're going to switch these guys. So this is the one I just took out of this one, and we're going to put it back in here. This looks like a newer coil, actually. So this is just going to rule out whether or not we have a bad coil. Typically what you'd want to do is, if you did find out that it was a bad coil, which could be this coil right here that we're switching, you'd want to change out the spark plug that was mated to that coil, just because they can arc in one place for a long time, and it could develop carbon where there's no arcing going on, and then when the new coil tries to arc, it could have an issue, so then you might have a whole nother issue. So you want to change them as a pair. So once I'm sure that these are started here, I'm just going to send them home like this. And then we're going to plug our connectors back in here. And we don't have to put on the safety clips or anything like that. What I'm going to do now is go clear the code, and then we're going to run the car, and we're going to scan for more codes. So I think for right now I'll just tuck this intake box back on here really quick, and alright, we're ready to go scan and see if our misfire jumped. Here I am back in torque. I'm going to go to our codes here, and we're going to scan for codes. Okay, there's our code, and what we're going to do is clear faults on ECU, and we're going to hit yes, and that cycled a few actuators in there. I could hear them moving, and that should clear our code. Alright, that's that. So now we're going to go start the car. The car definitely feels like it's misfiring pretty good. I'm just waiting for the check engine light to come on. After letting the car run for a little while, I finally was able to get a check engine light. It didn't seem to want to give me a check light at idle. We were thinking because maybe the crankshaft sensor couldn't quite tell which of the pistons wasn't firing at that one point in time. So once we brought it up to around 1500 RPMs, that's when it started to be able to tell if it was misfiring or not. So it was able to throw us a code. And this time our code is P0304 as opposed to 305, which means cylinder 4 misfire detected. So in this case, it was a coil, and switching it from cylinder 5 to cylinder 4 showed us that the misfire did jump cylinders. So now we know that that part that we switched is our part, So what we're gonna do is get a new coil, and we're also gonna get a new plug, and this thing should misfire no longer. I've gone ahead and already disassembled the whole intake box and unplugged these two coil connectors here. And I'm gonna take the coil out. This is the bad coil that we swapped into number 4. And I'm gonna take a look inside, and I'm gonna see if there's any sort of water in there, just to be sure. Gotta try to get a good angle. It looks pretty dry. I don't think I'll be able to see in 5, but the coil did not look like it had any water on it, but this right here is clearly a new coil. So this one had coil number 4 changed. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this and put this back in the number 4 spot, because that is its home and it was working just fine. So we're gonna put him back, get it started, and I'll tighten that up in a sec. We'll plug him back in and put our locking clip back on. And then we are gonna get to the one directly behind him. Back here is where we're gonna take our spark plug out. So I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna get up on top of the car and make sure that there's no water in that hole, and if there is, I'm gonna blow it out with an air compressor, because if we unscrew the spark plug and there's water in there, it's all gonna go down inside of the cylinder. And we don't want water in the engine because we don't want to hydrolock anything. So I'm gonna take a look in there and we'll see if we have any water to worry about. So I used a 5/8 spark plug socket to get this guy out with just a little ratchet on there. And now that it's all the way backed out, take out our spark plug. Here's our new plug though. This guy right here should mate with our new coil and we should be all set. So I'm just gonna put this on. And we're gonna put our new spark plug in like this. There we go. All right, so our new plug is in. Now we're gonna grab our new coil. And here's our nice brand new coil. And this guy's gonna go just like that. So I've got it all buttoned up and everything's all tightened down. There's not really much left for me to show you. So I'm just gonna put everything back together and then I'm gonna start the car up and we're gonna see how it idles. And I think you'll be able to tell in the video how smoothly it idles, and then we'll eventually scan for codes if we get another check light, but I don't think we will. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together and then we'll fire it up. So everything is reassembled. It's now time for me to start the car, and we're gonna see how this car runs. Hopefully you can tell on video, but this car is running great. It sounds so much better than it did. It really does sound like way better. Yeah. It sounded awful before, but it's just purring now. So it looks like we fixed our issue. So here's our misfire code that's still in our system. I'm just going to clear this fault, and we're going to let that clear, and then we should be okay because the car is no longer misfiring. So to cap everything up, we had a misfire on this Trailblazer, and our first step was to try to change a coil, just because we know coils are likely to fail, and on this particular car, the water does get in and it causes the coils to fail. And we had just had some heavy rain, so that was more than likely the problem. But on every car, it's going to be different scenario, you know. So, but swapping plugs or swapping spark plug wires or swapping coils is always a good way to see if your cylinder that's misfiring changes. And if you have a simple scan tool, you can do that. The scan tool that I have was, I think, not too much money, maybe $20, and the torque application is a good amount of money, but there is a light version, which I think allows you to scan codes. But yeah, it's worth getting to do your own repairs like this. I mean, this was super simple, like very easy. You know, 2 8mm, you know, bolts for the intake box there, and then 2 10mm, and then, you know, 110 to take the coil out. I mean, really, it's no big deal at all. Like, it was very easy to do. So I think that anybody could try this at home. But yeah, I'm glad that everything worked out. If this, however, hadn't switched our misfire, if our misfire hadn't jumped to a different cylinder that we had switched the coil to, then we would have to look into something else. We might do a compression test, which I think I might be doing a compression test pretty soon on my Accord, just because I would like to know what kind of compression I have before I decide to go and turbo the car. So I'll demonstrate that in an upcoming video, but you know, until then, stay tuned. Got plenty of things planned. But thanks for watching if you made it all the way to the end, and subscribe to see more. Thanks, guys.